Good afternoon, everyone. It is really nice to be back here, and it's really nice to see a lot of familiar faces, but I also see some new faces. So quickly, a quick little refresh. What is neurodiversity? Neurodiversity is that we're all neurodiverse. We all think and perform differently, and it's about respecting how we all think and perform differently. Now, out of that umbrella, we have what is neurotypicals, who are the neuromajority. And out of that same umbrella, we have neurodivergents, those who break away and diverge from neurotypicals. And those are dyslexias, ADHDs, autistic, dyscalculia, developmental language disorder, Tourette's, development coordination disorder, and many more. So this talk is about neurodiversity, those who've traditionally been, or should I say neurodivergents, traditionally been marginalized in the workplace because of how they think and perform differently. So even though the title is neurodiversity, what we're really talking about is neurodivergence. Now, with that quick recap, I have a number of things I want to cover with you. We're going to start off with the neurodiversity inclusion principles, followed by that should not have been there. Okay, so what is inclusion and diversity mindset? Followed by how managers can support neurodivergent talent. Then we're going to go into accommodations, followed by triggers of mental health, and then we're going to round off at recognition. So, 6 key principles of neurodiversity inclusion in the work principles. These are 6 key principles that you're going to see throughout the presentation in many forms. It's about being people-centric, being flexible, identifying strengths, supporting challenges, being reflective, and lastly, being patient. So these are crucial points. Now we're going to get into what is inclusion and diversity mindset. And this is very important because we're going to be talking about management and how managers can support neurodivergence. But in order for that to happen, we need to get into an inclusion mindset. So this brings in a really wonderful quote. I love this quote. Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. Diversity is being invited to the party, and inclusion is being asked to dance. Now, what does that mean? Well, who hosts the party? Businesses. Being invited to dance is business's opportunity to influence work. So this has to be made to everyone, not to a few select groups. Otherwise, it's going to affect confidence. You're not going to have diverse perspectives, and it's going to affect performance. Now, as much as I love this quote, there is a missing element. And that element is who facilitates and grants access to dance. Anybody? Who facilitates and grants access to dance? Sorry? Managers. Managers and line managers. So how can they grant access to dance if they lack the awareness, they lack the skills, they lack the resources, and are unwilling to give access to those resources? So this brings us 2 studies. Every year for the last 6 years, there's been an event in March called Neurodiversity Week. And in that week, 2 particular studies have come out. One we're going to talk now, and one we're going to talk about later. So in the first study, they found that only 29% of top-level managers have had any type of neurodiversity training. Only 23% of HR have had any type of neurodiversity training in the last 12 months. So where's the other 70%? How can we grant access to dance when only 30% have had any type of awareness and training? That leaves a lot of talent being left out and, frankly, discriminated against. Now, there's also a third element, something that was quite interesting that came out of that study, which was neurodiversity is a women's issue, something that has never been studied before. Why is it a women's issue? Well, it's because women will have to take time off, need flexibility to go look after a neurodivergent child and or a neurodivergent parent. and they themselves might be neurodivergent. So because of that inflexibility, because managers don't understand or not providing the ability to work from home, many women are forced to leave the workplace. So that is a huge brain drain in talent. Can your organizations afford to lose such talent? So this brings us to Ed Thomas. Ed Thomas, I had the pleasure of interviewing. He is the founder of Optimize and the CEO, and the author of his latest book, or his first book, should I say, A Hidden Force, Unlocking the Potentiality of Neurodiversity at Work. And what he has found in his years of providing resources and research is that businesses are moving towards hiring talent based on how they think. Why? Well, because businesses are getting smaller due to AI and technology. So in order to become more competitive and to grow, they need diverse thinkers, dyslexics, ADHDs, dyscalculia. So this brings in a very interesting study done by Stanford in partnership with a number of other universities. And they constructed a live game of Pac-Man. And they created two groups. The first group was made up of your usual homogeneous team. The second group was made up of homogeneous and diverse thinkers. The homogeneous team spent more time talking about what they were going to do, whereas Group B spent time talking and then immediately acted. They outperformed the homogeneous team every time. So that says a lot about hiring and cultivating diverse thinkers. It also says a lot about, well, all those countless, pointless meetings that we go to where we spend a lot of time talking and no little action. So this now brings up spike profiles. Now, you may recall this from the last time I was speaking, for those of you who were here last year. Spike profiles have become very, very important, particularly with the second study that we're going to talk about soon. And they become very important in helping managers in how to manage neurodivergent teams and to recruit and cultivate new talent. So give you a quick refresher. When we take a look at neurotypicals, we can see small hills and small valleys, showing small discrepancies between their strengths and challenges. When we take a look at a neurodivergent spike profile, we can see large mountains and large valleys, showing huge discrepancies between their strengths and challenges. With a spike profile, you will know where their strengths are, you will know where to place them, and you will know where to support them. So you know that you have a good strategic thinker. Where are you going to place them? How are you going to use them? You know they have problems with prioritization. You know how you're going to support them. This, again, is going to become very crucial in regards to recruitment. So save your recruitment questions for later. So this now brings us into what are the challenges. And we're going to quickly cover this. When we talk about neurodiversity, we are talking about executive function and how it affects their executive function. So very quickly, we have inhibition. We have self-awareness and monitoring. We also have working memory visual, working memory motor, working memory verbal. We then have processing speed. We go into self-regulation, followed by self-motivation, and lastly, problem solving. And we're going to discuss this in various forms through the presentation. So how do we know who's neurodivergent? Well, you don't. Over 90% will not disclose. Also take into account, many do not know themselves they're neurodivergent because many are undiagnosed. And they will not disclose due to fear of stigma, past experiences, due to threat of career damage. And there is enough studies and research to back that up. So you don't know who's neurodivergent. So according to the second report, the two most crucial things that were very important to neurodivergence in the workplace, which outweighed everything else, is psychological safety and career satisfaction. Psychological safety and career satisfaction. Psychological safety, is it safe to disclose? Will my manager support me? Will they provide accommodations? Career satisfaction, how is this going to have an impact on my career? Will I be able to climb the corporate ladder? This has now become the theme for the rest of this presentation: psychological safety and career satisfaction. So let's start the conversation. How are you going to find out? You need to start talking about it. So if we take a look at Betsson, Maria and Lana, they, to my knowledge, are not neurodivergent, but they started talking about it. They started to engage. They started to bring people like me to start educating themselves and everyone else. So start the conversation. Be curious. Do your research. Write about it in your internal communications. Create an anonymous surveys. Create an employee resource group. If you can, find someone internally who's willing to speak up and be a voice to educate managers and their fellow colleagues. And if you can't find someone, well, please invite me. So let's talk about cultural add. Culture add is a counter to culture fit, as well as a balance of culture fit. It's about purposely going out and hunting for new perspectives, new experiences, introducing new skills. It's about purposely going out and bringing different types of prototypes than your usual homogeneous teams. This will make you more competitive and more profitable and more productive. So now we're going to get into the heart of it. How can managers support neurodivergent talent in the workplace? And there are a number of strategies that we're going to cover here. So first off, it starts again with awareness and education. Understand their neurodiversity. Have a routine one-to-one with them, even if they haven't disclosed and you suspect, because again, 90% won't. Listen and understand and value their lived experience. Their lived experience does have an impact on one's neurodiversity. Understand the accommodations they need. Be respectful and sensitive, as well as proactive to their preferences. And lastly, be an ally and be adaptive. Adaptive is crucial because neurotypical strategies will not work on someone who's neurodivergent because we think and perform differently. You're going to go tell me, go read The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. It's a great book. I've read it. But it was written by a neurotypical for neurotypicals. You're going to have to adjust those strategies or come up with new ones to support neurodivergent talent. Don't let success fool you. Don't let success fool you. You're going to have your high performer in your team. They outperform everybody else, and they're going to come to you. I'm struggling. I have dyscalculia. I've been overcompensating. I've been masking. I need accommodations. And you are going to resist because you're going to say, what are you talking about? You don't have this. You're our top performer. They're on the verge of burnout. Don't let success fool you. Once again, respect and use the preferences they wish to use. Again, we look at a neurotypical way. That's great. It works for neurotypicals. It doesn't work for someone's neurodivergence. So understand what their neurodivergence is and respect the preferences they wish to use. So how do we do this? We first need to establish certainty. So how do we establish certainty? We need to be clear. We need to be specific. And we need to be precise. We need to make sure that we've communicated well, that they've understood, and they understand the why, the purpose of what needs to be done, what it connects to the bigger picture. Otherwise, it makes it hard for them to make that connection, to put that focus towards that work. Now, when there is a complete lack of clarity, it creates uncertainty. It creates uncertainty in how they're going to move forward and how they're going to perform. And the lack of clarity falls on the responsibility of the manager, not the employee. So you need to make sure that you are clear, that you are precise, specific. Make sure that clarity is there. So how do we do this? We do this in 4 ways. We obviously communicate. We make sure that they've understood. If they haven't understood, we adjust our approach. We adapt. And most importantly, we check in. Always check in. Check in is crucial. Check in if they understood. Check in if they have any questions, any comments. They might come up with new perspectives. Once they leave and they work for an hour and a half, 2 hours, at some point you're going to need to check in. Check in if they need further support. Check in if they may have new questions, new comments, because they will. New perspectives. Check in if you can help them, if they need resources. Check-in is crucial. So let's talk about reasonable accommodations. Reasonable accommodations. Communication once again. Don't just rely on verbal because of working memory and processing speed. So you need to support that with I'm going ahead of myself, written and visual communications. Because you're going to give me a list of 10 things. I'm only going to remember 2 of those things. So you need to support that with visuals and written communications. So use Post-it notes, use emails. Also, use bullet points, break it down. Don't give me long sentences, because I find that sentences close together difficult to comprehend and read. If you see in my presentation, I've added adequate spacing and bullets, because it makes it easier for me to read. Use color for readability. Again, they emphasize different portions and aspects of what's important. They make it easier to read. Use proper readable fonts. Use large fonts. Avoid long-winded sentences. Keep it short, to the sweet, and to the point. Use clear, precise language. Avoid any jargon unless they're industry words. And if they are industry words, do you have a glossary that they can refer to? Now we're going to talk about listening skills. When verbal communication is needed, find a quiet space where both parties can be focused. Prep what you're going to say. After you finish speaking, listen to what they're going to say. Because again, they're going to have time to process. Hear them out. Allow time for notes. You could be on point number 7, and they're still on point number 2 because of working memory, because of processing speed, and because, frankly, we speak faster than we can write. So give them time to process. Both parties need to summarize what the other party has said, and both parties need to ensure that they've understood. Let's talk about instructions. Many neurodivergents have difficulty following instructions due to sequencing and structure. So, many like to be shown what to do, not told. So take the time to show them. Again, support the verbal with action. Break it down, chunk it. Chunk it to 1 to 2 points. So if you give me a list of 10 things, chunk it to point 1 and 2, give me a list of priorities. Once that's done, then we move to the next chunk. Be clear with timetables with each segment of the task. There should be focused, quick, and time-bound with chunked deadlines. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about this later, but quickly. I come in, you give me a task at 9 o'clock in the morning. You tell me it's due at 12. Okay. At 11 o'clock, you want to see a draft. I have an early deadline to prepare for. Then at 12 o'clock, I hand it in. There needs to be the check-ins, there needs to be the reviews, but there's early deadline gives me a priority of where I need to be at. It's a benchmark. Now, support the use of tools such as Trello, Asana, Todoist. Why? They will assist with breaking down tasks, clear communications. They will assist with setting reminders. They will also help with check-ins. Check-ins for them, check-ins for you. Now, I did say I'll be coming back, so here I am. Understand and know how to support interest-based nervous systems. Interest-based nervous systems. With neurodiversity, but in particular, in this example, we're talking about ADHD, they need strong incentives. They need frequent and immediate rewards. So when we take a look at ADHD, dopamine, there's other chemicals besides dopamine, but we all know dopamine, that relates to incentives. If there's a lack of interest, they're not going to put all their focus into it. So you need to create incentives to give them interest. You need to create a reward program. So when we create an 11 o'clock draft, that's an incentive. Now, what's the reward in between? And when between 11 and 12 when it's due, what's the reward in between? These are strategies you're going to need to think about when we talk about interest-based nervous systems. Now we're going to get into processing speed. Now there's 2 aspects of processing speed, slow and fast. So slow, I've already indicated. Give them time to receive information, give them time to process information, give them time to react to information because they think slowly, differently. So give time for thought and cultivate thought. Allow for questions, because they're going to come with questions. Thoughts and questions are never immediate. So you know they're going to come back to you in 45 minutes to ask more questions, give different inputs, make a comment, come up with a new perspective, which now comes back to agendas. Agendas are important. Who likes to go to a meeting without an agenda? Well, neurodivergents need to have an agenda to be able to process information due to processing speed. So if you want to have a quick 5-minute chat, slow down. Take the time to write an agenda for yourself and for them. Tell them in 20 minutes we're going to have a 5-minute chat. In that agenda, they're going to have time to process what they're going to need to think about, what they're going to need to comment, how they're going to contribute. And then even after that meeting, schedule a time, 45 minutes, an hour later, because they're still processing, and they're going to come back to you and have questions, comments, new perspectives. So you're going to need to make space to know that they're going to come for you. Agendas are important. Now we're going to get into fast processing speed, which is quite the opposite. They don't have a slow processing speed. They think fast. By the time you start speaking, they've already finished your question or comment or answered it or start asking questions and comments. And if they can't get this momentum out of them, they're going to start having anxiety. So create opportunities where they can have ID dumps, comment dumps, question dumps. Put that in the agenda because they need to get that catharsis. Change. I don't like change. I'm sure many of you don't like change. Neurodivergents don't like change. Change disrupts their routine and their structure. Change. My wife, I make a plan, I have a schedule, she suddenly changes. Ooh. Change. So give adequate notice to any type of change. Movement and breaks. As you can see, I'm moving. Movement helps me to self-regulate. Movement helps me to focus and to concentrate. When you think they're not concentrating or focused, it's actually quite the opposite. Movement helps with that. So allow them to walk around the board table. Allow them to walk in the hallway. Allow them to walk around their desks. They need to have that momentum. Now comes breaks. Breaks are important. Breaks allows us to focus and to recenter. So let's talk about the Pomodoro method. Now, for neurotypicals, scientifically, the human brain can only focus at 25 minutes at a time. After that, they start to lose their focus. So they need a 5-minute break to refocus, to recenter, to reestablish themselves, and then put their energy back into that 25-minute task. Now, for neurodivergence, well, it's quite the opposite. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes. I'm currently at a 15-minute interval. I put all my energy in a task for 15 minutes, and then I need to have a 5-minute break to recenter, to refocus. Breaks are important. So let's talk about social norms, kind of taboo. Do neurodivergents set the standards and the benchmarks for social norms? Can neurodivergents come to the workplace and be allowed to be themselves? Where do we want them to put their energy? In their performance and being productive, or in masking? So, let's use honesty is the best policy. It's a great social norm, right? Until you ask someone who's autistic for their opinion, they give you their opinion, and what do you say? They're rude. So, now who was rude, really? Can an autistic person be who they are in the workplace? So this brings up the controversy of buffers. Now, some neurodivergents welcome a buffer. Many completely object to a buffer, and rightly so. So what's a buffer? So we'll use the example of an autistic person. They've been told that their emails are quite rude. So I'm going to ask one of you, my colleagues or my manager, can you polish my email so it sounds more polite to meet social norms? Again, many welcome a buffer. But on the other hand, many completely object to it because they should be allowed to be who they are. So you need to adapt. Now it also brings up events like today, the party that we had yesterday and tonight. Many feel uncomfortable in those situations. But unfortunately, many cannot progress in their career unless they attend that event. So what are we going to do to meet them at their level rather than expecting them to come to our level? So let's talk about sensory processing. It does impact productivity hugely. So look at what you can do to minimize that. Create a sensory-free room where they can control, which is sensory sensitive, and they can control the sensory input in that room. Sensory does impact their productivity. So what can we do? Well, agree on flexible options. Allow them to wear noise-canceling headphones. They may need to wear sunglasses or have prescription tinted glasses because of the lighting affecting their sensories. They need frequent breaks. They may need more frequent breaks than other neurotypicals because of that sensory input. Allow them to work from home because they've created that environment to be works best for them that takes care of that sensory input. So this brings us back to executive function. We frankly have been talking about executive function through the whole entire section of this. And one of the most profound experts in ADHD and neurodiversity, Dr. Rusty Broccoli, states that accommodations and productivity strategies are the equivalent of building a ramp for someone in a wheelchair. So let's remember, I have an invisible disability. You cannot see my dyslexia, my visual motor, visual perception, working memory. If I was in a wheelchair, you would have better understanding and sympathy, correct? So these ramps are very important for us to be productive, to perform, to climb the ladder. We need these ramps. Now, out of all the strategies that I've given you, if those are not the right strategies for those individuals, there are two key questions you should be asking. Question number one, for managers who are currently managing neurodivergents who have disclosed or may not have, and you suspect. What do you need that works best for you? What do you need that works best for you? And when you are recruiting, ask, what do you need to be successful? What do you need to be successful? Now, these two questions are crucial because it dances around asking if they are neurodivergent, and it dances around asking if they need accommodations. You can avoid asking, and they can avoid disclosing. So these are two crucial questions to add to your toolbox. So we now enter triggers in mental health, the last two sections. Triggers of mental health are very important. Very important for them to learn how to manage, and also very important for you as managers to learn how to manage. Now, we're basically talking about meltdowns. Meltdowns are real, they're not tantrums. Meltdowns can happen internally and externally. Now, there are many aspects to meltdowns, but we're going to cover two of them. One is RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and the other one is emotional regulation. So let's talk about RSD. RSD relates to, frankly, being constantly criticized. Constantly criticized by schools, family, managers, colleagues, society. It's created a trauma. That trauma has led into now the possibility of fictitious criticism. The belief that they're going to be criticized, which then relates into a meltdown. Then we have emotional deregulation, which basically is the difficulty in imagining one's emotions. So you may tail neurotypical. You're upset, take a deep breath, walk away. Great. For a neurodivergent, they may have difficulty in managing those emotions and being able to walk away, leading into a meltdown. So this can be caused by sensory overload. We're talking about stress. We're talking about overwhelmed, which all leads, frankly, to anxiety. It's about learning how to manage anxiety. Now, don't look at the response. Look at the causes. It could be caused by other people. It could be caused by themselves and they don't know why. It could be from unexpected changes. There it is again, change. It could be new places, new people, which is also change. It could be because of managing their executive function. It could be ambiguous language. It could be because of too many demands. So if we go back to the strategies that I've talked about earlier, this will help manage that and hopefully negate that. So, you will find it unpleasant. Well, imagine how they feel. They definitely find it unpleasant. I know when I've had my meltdowns, they've been unpleasant. So become aware of the triggers. Learn how you can bring down those triggers. And one good solution for that is find quiet spaces, as well as use neutralizing language. Add this to your toolbox. What they have found that when it comes to anxiety is neutralizing language works. So you're going to say, you did this wrong. This is going to cost us money. You're going to need to redo this. You've wasted company time. Wrong language. How can we fix this? How can we work on this together? Shall we bring in the team to help support you? How can we support you in this? Neutralizing language. So this brings us to recognition. 60% feel somewhat not seen or not seen at all. 60% feel somewhat or not seen at all. So recognition is frankly a tool that we don't utilize as effectively and regularly as we should. So neurodivergents want to be seen. They want to know that their skills are valued. They want to know they've made a difference. They want to be appreciated. They want to be recognized for being a specialist and not a generalist. This comes back to spike profiles and how important spike profiles are. It comes back to recruitment. We tend to hire generalists and not specialists. Hence, we don't make room in our companies for specialists. Again, save those questions regarding this because specialists are important. So I want to introduce you to this lovely gentleman. I am not going to try to pronounce his name. My dyslexia just kicks in. Perhaps Gordon here will be able to pronounce his name for me. But this is a HR professional and a professor. And I had the pleasure of listening to him on a webinar where he gave wonderful gems, gold nuggets in regards to recognition. Recognition is the new currency. Recognition is the new currency. It's become an expectation. It fuels passion. Recognition is a tool for learning. They want more feedback. Recognition is the anchor of culture. And recognition needs to be given daily and regularly. So if you recall last year when I spoke, I gave a study, and this reinforces that study. There was a study done where they found that when recognition and giving attention was given on a daily basis, performance skyrocketed. So recognition is crucial. And the last lovely golden nugget, which almost frankly leaves me speechless. Managers need to move away from micromanagement to micro-understanding. So let's pause there for a moment. When we talk about micromanagement is a byproduct of employers and managers not trusting their staff. We need to move away from not trusting to trusting and move towards micro-understanding. Micro-understanding of their neurodivergencies, micro-understanding of their strengths, micro-understanding of their challenges, micro-understanding of their triggers, micro-understanding of how to give them recognition. Micro-understanding. It's crucial. So, neurodivergent employees have historically had difficulties climbing the career ladder and getting promoted and remain unappreciated at senior levels. So from that same study, we have found that recognition impacts the well-being. It comes back to psychological safety and career satisfaction, as you have seen since I introduced that. Attention, bosses and managers. Recognition is more important than accommodations. Recognition is more important than accommodations. So, that's not quite true, but it's very important. If we go back to accommodations from this study, from one of the authors of this study, accommodations is part of the career progression. It's 50% of the solution. The other 50% of the solution is recognition. So, accommodations is a hygiene test. So imagine going to a hotel that is unhygienic. If it's unhygienic, you already have one foot out the door, don't you? Accommodations is the same. Neurodivergent talent will already have one foot out the door. Either one foot out the door because they're going to get fired, or one foot out the door because they're looking elsewhere for accommodations. The next half of that solution is recognition. So accommodations is psychological safety. Can I disclose? Can I get support from my manager? Will I get accommodations? Career satisfaction. Am I recognized? Am I valued? Am I appreciated? Are my skills welcomed? Recognition is huge. It all comes back to psychological safety and career satisfaction. All right, so this pretty much brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm getting my warning, but I'm still going to speak over my time. How can you connect with me? You can connect with me in regards to my website. As I mentioned, I've done interviews, which means I have a podcast, Take a Leap and Transform, a Neurodiversity Journey, where I provide solutions to managers on how to support neurodivergent talent. And as well, I have a number of workshops, how to up-level the skills of managers, how to improve recruitment. And lastly, one accommodation I haven't mentioned, coaching. Many neurodivergents need a coach. They value a coach. I provide mentoring and coaching. So with that said, I now have the pleasure of introducing Nina Winsland. I had the pleasure of meeting her last year. She was here listening to me speak, and she had come up to me humbly. I'm greatly actually humbled that she did this, and said to me, working for Betsson, that I just got a late diagnosis with being autistic, and I like to make changes. And with Maria and Lana standing beside me, the three of them started to work together. And now I hand it over to Nina, who's going to discuss what they've done at Betsson.
Thank you, Joseph. Oh, wow, Joseph, I'm not sure how to follow that one. So, my name is Nina. I'm a Global Promotions Manager at Betsson. I'm here to talk about the Betsson Neurodiversity Network that we have set up. A little bit about the background, what we're doing at the moment, and what we're planning for the future. As Joseph said, I was here in September 22 last year, and heard his amazing talk about neurodiversity and work, and saw him talking to Lena and Maria, our HR managers there. Being socially inappropriate, I just barged in there and said, hello, great talk. I work at Betsson. I'm autistic. What can we do about this? Now, to me, it's obvious that awareness is very important, awareness about neurodiversity and the issues around it. We need to give relevant information that's about neurodiverse adults at workplace. And we need to give support to neurodivergents, but also people neurotypical that are working with us, how to deal with us. The information and support needs to be driven by us, empowering us. And we need to be advocating for ourselves. We know best what we need. There are a lot of common elements in neurodiversity, but it is diversity. So there are a lot of differences as well. This is why advocating for ourselves is very, very important. So why is setting up this network important and worthwhile? It is thought that about 15 to 20% of the whole population is neurodiverse. Now, this number depends on what study you look at, what population you look at, from which country, but it's about there, 15 to 20%. So there's quite a lot of us. But unfortunately, about 80 to 90% of us are unemployed or underemployed and, struggling to get ahead in our careers. And this is often because we are not openly inclusive on workplaces. For neurodiverse people, it's very, very hard to work in an open office. There is networking involved. There are team events involved. My team is over there. Horrible team events that you have to take part. You don't know what to do. So there's lots of things that can go wrong at workplace, and you don't feel that it's open to you. Diverse teams are more creative and productive, like Joseph had already mentioned. So there is a good reason why companies should invest in this, look into this, and support us. My favorite is one of the studies there that says that autistic people are 90 to 140% more productive than neurotypical ones. That's a great study. I have more if you want to know. Something that many people don't think about is that the diagnostic criteria for ADHD and autistic spectrum has been changing a lot lately, and there are plenty of undiagnosed people, especially older adults and women. Now, if we are spreading information and awareness, my hope is that we're going to reach some undiagnosed people that can get diagnosed. The question is, why do we need a label? Why do we need to diagnose these people if they are okay, they're having a career, having a life? Now, it's not just about the label, and you can't give me a pill and cure my autism. That doesn't work. It's not a disease, it's just how I'm built. The one good thing about coming from diagnosis that I had late in life, actually last year, is that I'm more aware of where my stress and my anxiety comes from. Now that I know where it comes from, it's much easier to treat it, to find solutions, work better, and find support for it. Also, it's really nice to be able to say to people like, I'm a bit awkward, something went wrong, sorry about doing this, I'm autistic. Now, I try not to use it as an excuse to behave badly, but it does help sometimes. And it also helps to start a conversation. Now, back to our network. How did we start it? We first found out how many people would be even interested joining a network. So we put posters up on the office, we wrote an article in our intranet, and said, please contact me if you're interested, either neurodivergent or neurotypical, if you just want to know more about it. We got a nice group of about 20 people contacting me, a couple of them neurodivergent, really happy to hear that this was happening, feeling that they have been discriminated before, they were not able to speak about it openly. So I decided to set up a chat group in Teams and also a mailing list for information. We've had our first meeting to discuss priorities, which is really good since we are a diverse group of people. What do the ADHD people want? What do dyslexic people want? The hot topic was the open office and our hybrid model that had some changes to it recently. We are setting up an Infosun page, which is an internal site open to all Betssonites. Now, just finishing off and launching hopefully this week or latest next week. That page will have all sorts of information, general information about neurodiversity, tools, what you can use for both, for us, how to cope, but also what to do with your team member that might be neurodiverse. There's also resources, links to YouTube videos about neurodiversity, about books and so on. So that's hopefully educational. Next steps for us is going to be organizing talks and panel discussion, hopefully get some Betssonites to talk about their experiences, their neurodiversity. Inviting Joseph over to give us informational talks would be ideal as well. Just keep collecting more information and sharing experiences. That's going to be very important for us. Taking part in these conferences and the D&I network that Betsson set up, very, very important. We're meeting other people, learning lots, and connecting. So the vision for the future is that we would like to extend this network outside Betsson to other companies, to other individuals. Now, we are aware that not all companies have enough people to set up their own network, and they don't know how to do it. So that's where we could help. That's about it. I'm saying, if you're interested, want to know more about me, the network, email me, contact me in LinkedIn, grab me after this. I will be networking on the roof later on, but see how that goes. Thank you.